Helps if I take the safety off, huh? Hi, this is Misha, and this video is on really my favorite series of shotguns, the ones from Benelli. Now, we don't have every Benelli out here because these are pretty expensive shotguns. Although the one I'm holding in my hands, the Benelli pump, this is the Nova Tactical, is actually quite affordable. These range $4 to $4.50, sometimes a little more depending on features, but it is a pretty standard pump shotgun. It uses a Benelli style rotating bolt here, kind of like the old Winchester 1200s and 1300s. It fires 12 gauge. It does 2 3/4, 3-inch magnums, and even 3.5-inch magnums. The tactical version has an 18.5-inch barrel. It has a 4+1 capacity tube, and it has adjustable ghost ring sights. The Nova is interesting in the world of pump shotguns because the receiver and the stock are all one piece of polymer, which is overlaid on a stainless steel kind of skeleton or frame. So you have steel underneath with polymer on as an overmold for weather resistance. I mean, there's really no way for this to wear. Standard stock, rubber recoil pad. Pretty well standard pump shotgun otherwise. Nice triggers on these for being stock. But this is the basic Nova Tactical. You can easily install a +2 extension up here. Several people make them, including factory Benellis. This was introduced in 1999. It's still in production today. I picked this one up lightly used, and you saw us shooting it in the intro there. And just a really good alternative. You know, I like Mossbergs a lot. Remingtons are good as well, but this is another modern shotgun that might be of interest, and it's kind of nice that it will handle all 3 different sizes of 12 gauge. Now, to go with that, after they introduced the Nova, they came out with the SuperNova. Now, the front end of the SuperNova is the same as the Nova. We have this longer pump, which I like. You notice it comes all the way back to the trigger guard, so it makes these easier to use. It also has the same type of button here, which is nice. It's basically a mag feed cutoff. If, let's say, you have buckshot in the tube, when you want to put in a less lethal round or a slug, all you have to do is press this button here, pull back, and it keeps the ammunition from coming out of the tube and onto the elevator. Now, this version here is the LE version of the SuperNova. So it comes with a +3 extension. This is actually a 7+1 tube. Still has the same ghost ring sights, but this back one's polymer, and this is drilled and tapped to accept a scope or a rail, unlike the Nova. And the SuperNova actually has removable, thus interchangeable stocks, whereas on the Nova, it's all part of the receiver. This particular one has a Benelli style pistol grip, and a 5-position adjustable stock, which is quite handy for setting it to be exactly the way you need it and want it. But again, this is the law enforcement version. Oh, and their trigger guard is slightly reshaped to make it a little easier to use with gloves and a pistol grip. So there's that. Again, pretty well standard pump shotgun. Although I have to admit, this is one of the coolest looking pumps around. This will still handle 3.5-inch magnums as well. So that's pretty much Benelli's pump line. And both of those are in use by police. Really the gun that put Benelli on the map was the original M1, which was introduced around 1994. Now the M1 is an interesting shotgun. It doesn't have a gas system. Instead, it just has this bolt here. What's that? The actual recoil of the firing rotates and pushes the bolt back. This does lead to a little bit heavier felt recoil, and it does mean it's not 100% reliable with light loads. On the other hand, because there is no gas system, it's much lighter weight of a gun. We have an alloy receiver here. Now what I'm actually holding is the M2, which is just an updated version of the M1, which came out around 2005. The M2 has a slightly reshaped handguard. It has a receiver that's drilled and tapped for a scope base or a Picatinny Weaver mount. We still have the standard ghost ring sights. This is the tactical version, which has a fixed stock and pistol grip. Benelli doesn't offer this with the collapsing stock for some reason, even though most of their models do. It has a 7-shot tube. The original capacity from here to here is actually only 3 rounds because the M1s were meant for both defense and hunting. So most of the M1 and M2 tacticals you'll find will have a little extension, either a +1 or a +2. This one actually has a +4 because we're taking this 3 up to 7. Actually, I purchased a used M1 tactical for myself back, 2002. Very nice shotgun. Sold it some years later and picked up this M2 recently to replace it. And I have to admit, I kind of like the M2. I like this redesigned handguard the most. It is more comfortable to me personally. One of the downsides about the M2 that people will point out is you can't ghost load them. At least you can't without modifying the elevator a little bit. You can look up ghost loading if you don't know what it is, but it's essentially a way to get 1 extra shell on the elevator here, increasing the capacity by 1. But yeah, the M1 and the M2 have been very popular with law enforcement. Even a few militaries have used them over the years, but mostly just law enforcement. They're well liked for their reliability and simplicity and lightweight. They also have good ergonomics. The safety is well placed right here. You knock it off with your finger very easily. Come to the trigger. Yeah, this thing weighs under 7 pounds. So that's not bad for a 12-gauge shotgun. But the M2 is still in production today. This is, the box for this one has a standard civilian part number, but the LE version looks identical with this +4 extension and the pistol grip stock. Takes a standard sling swivel. Also, the sling swivel up here you can rotate to put it on the bottom or the right side, which is kind of nice. Yeah, I've always been a fan of Benelli's. They're just well made. But the ultimate Benelli, we've done a video on this one a long time ago. Hands down is the M4. The Benelli M4 was made in 1998 and went into production in 1999, specifically to fulfill requirements laid out by the U.S. military. Up to this point, Benelli had done recoil operated only semi-autos, but the U.S. military wanted gas pistons. So what Benelli did, they retained the Benelli rotating bolt, and then they added 2 stainless steel gas pistons, one on each side, to strike the carrier to ensure reliability. This does mean the M4 is a little better handling lighter loads. It still won't handle the super light stuff, but if you're over 1 ounce, it usually does fine. But yeah, this was accepted by the U.S. military in 1999, and the first trials guns were received that year. And then throughout the 21st century, the military has received more and more of these. Mostly you hear about them in the hands of the Marines, but they're actually in use by all 5 branches officially. This is a supremely reliable gun. It does weigh more than the M1 and the M2 because it still has an alloy receiver, but it's thicker. You have a rail on top. You have a heavier barrel. You have the gas system. You have a stock made mostly of metal. So yeah, features of this thing. We have a 7+1 tube. This one here has the 2-piece design, where this unscrews. There is also a single-piece tube. I have one in there, but I actually like the 2-piece better. It makes it easier for cleaning, and that's just what it came with. We have a medium heavyweight 18.5-inch barrel. We have pretty standard polymer handguards that are actually 2 halves that come apart when you go to clean it so you can get right to the gas system. We have this bolt, as I showed you. Very standard Benelli pistol grip. A metal trigger guard. Although the newer M4s will come with a polymer trigger guard, both are correct. The original M4 used by the military was called the M1014 or M1014, and it had a 2-position only stock, in and out. But the newer ones actually have a 3rd position, which I really like because of my size. It's in between that gives you just a perfect length of pull. It also is good if you're wearing body armor. So some newer M4s made in the last 8-9 years will have a 3-position recoil tube on them instead of 2. Again, I've had this gun. I first saw when these came out for the civilian market. They had a commemorative version that came out in 2003 called the XM1014, and it was made during the assault weapons ban. So it had a 4+1 only tube, and it had this type of stock on it, but it was permanently fixed in the open position. You could actually rotate it side to side to take it off, but you couldn't actually collapse it because it was during the assault weapons ban. And it wasn't pinned. The whole buffer tube wasn't cut to allow it to collapse, so it's not an easy thing to modify one of those original commemorative guns. Also, they had this really doofy American flag on them, which obviously the military guns never had. It was just something they did, and they made about 1,500 of them. Then the standard M4 came out. Now, most you find will come with a fixed stock, much like you saw in the M2, pistol grip, and a 4+1 tube. Again, these are imports, so they have to comply with all that. Once in the USA, you can find stocks to put on them. There's no gunsmithing is required. It's very easy. And same with the +2 or +3 extension. These are really easy guns to work on, take apart, because they were made for military use. And I don't know, like I said, I've always really liked this shotgun. It feels really good. It is very reliable, and just has a certain aesthetic look to it. And this was the first semi-automatic shotgun that the U.S. military ever adopted. They still have plenty of pumps because there's some things that a semi-auto is not great for, like door breaching. But yeah, I've always had good luck. I've had this one here about 5 years. The law enforcement version of these looks the same as this, and you can get it with optional nighttime inserts in the Ghost Ring sight for about $150 more. So they make it with the tritium inserts and without. But yeah, I just thought we would kind of revisit and talk about Benelli shotguns a little bit. There's not a whole lot of history to get into, and I'm not to the point where I do a lot of disassembly videos yet, but it's definitely something worth sharing. If you have any questions, please post them below. I know the costs on these are high, and they are, but they are really good shotguns, and they will hold value well and be durable and reliable. The Nova, like I said, is about a $400 to $450. The SuperNova is about $500 to $550 for the basic, and about $700 for the police version. The M2 is about $1,000 up to about $1,200, $1,250 for the tactical, and the M4 starts out at about $1,600 for the base model and climbs up to about $2,100 for the fully decked out police version. So again, especially the M4, not cheap, but I've really yet to meet anyone who owns one of the M4s that isn't thrilled with it. For that matter, most people who own the M2 and the M1 are very happy with them. They're all very high quality shotguns. Well, as always, this is Misha, and we appreciate you tuning in. And please post any comments you have down below, and we'll catch you next time.